Hello everyone, welcome to the Buzz the Prey Manga. Today we continue the latest Global Freeze chapter, rewritten and edited by me in English for a smooth reading experience. All visuals and story flow are personally edited to give you the best manga style storytelling. Support the original creator by checking the official manga. So let's dive right into the today's chapter.
Chapter 2503 Azure Fireflow 1. Song Julio was not stupid. He immediately understood the ins and outs of the matter. The fire demon must have been controlled by the land dweller, who then used his life to attack him. He wasn't careful enough, but who could have imagined such a thing would happen? With a flap of his fiery wings, Song Julio forcefully suppressed the cold flames back into his heart. The moment he raised his eyes, his pupils were filled with overwhelming killing intent. Traitor! With a roar, the fire spears, melting towers, and city formations of the entire fiery prison city lit up simultaneously, and 10,000 spears were fired at the sky. The warriors of the Zhurong clan around him were stunned. They had not expected such a thing to happen. But then their anger erupted, turning into a huge roar. "I've made the first move I wanted. Now let's make our move." Zhang Yi's voice was soft, yet it was like a stone falling from the sky and landing squarely on everyone's hearts. His shadow spread out at his feet, and a dimensional gate opened behind him, creating a massive opening that stretched across the sky. The Shadow Squad, the Mechanical Legion, and the super battleship all appeared in the sky above Flame Prison City. The three ships appeared, and the Skysea Fortress deployed its light shield under the dome. The Dreamer's main guns rose from the ridge of the ship, their beams of light gathering momentum. The spacecraft's two scatterers opened and closed simultaneously, forming a cold, white net. The Hope's armor-piercing energy cannons were arrayed in the air, like sharp silver needles. On the ground, the Mechanical Legion landed on the crimson rocky ground. As the black tide surged, the shadow force lined up between the rocky ridges. Fatty Su, Uncle Yu, Liang Yu, and Bailey Chongqing were all in position, each well-equipped and in top physical condition thanks to military stimulants. They suffered almost no losses in attacking the Molten River and were still able to attack the fiery prison city at their strongest. Zhang Yi also deactivated his optical cloaking and stood before the majestic Tianhai army formation. He looked at Song Julio with a calm gaze, as if watching a mountain about to fall. The lava river has been destroyed. Now it's your turn. Such a massive army, standing like a steel forest before Yinyu City, was enough to terrify the Zhurong clan. They couldn't understand why hundreds of thousands of mechanical legions would suddenly appear outside their city. Only powerful ability users would realize that this is something only top-tier spatial ability users could accomplish. To transport such a large number of troops at once. A murderous aura permeated the air, and a thick gloom hung over the hearts of all the Zhurong clan members. The fire tower collapsed, and the flames of various colors scattered in a chaotic mess. Song Julio clutched his breastplate, staring at the black-clad figure in midair, his eyes slowly shifting from shock and anger to horror. "Who are you?" Zhang Yi's icy voice echoed in the air. "Before you die, remember my name. Human of the land, Chaos." The black, menacing armor of the End Demon God, covered in an impenetrable thick black aura, originated from the blood power of the Wulwan Empire over millions of years, making Zhang Yi look like a terrifying demon king. The people of the Zhurong clan were filled with fear and anger. Immediately, a chariot-level superhuman roared and launched an attack. In an instant, countless streaks of fire shot straight into the sky, heading straight for Zhang Yi. The enormous dragon, as huge as a meteor and blazing with fire, unleashed a variety of attacks, sealing off an area of several kilometers in radius. They thought this would leave Zhang Yi with no way to dodge. However, Zhang Yi did not move an inch in midair when faced with a volley of fire from tens of thousands of people. He simply raised his hand and waved it lightly in the air. The myriad phenomena of the universe. 3,000 dimensional gates bloomed around him one after another, like a transparent and slowly rotating sea of stars. Behind the door lies endless silence. Before it lies a scorching hell. Every door is breathing, taking in the heat, impacts, vibrations, and debris from all directions, bit by bit. The hissing of the air was cut off, and the teeth of the fire wave were pulled out. The attacks of tens of thousands of Zhurong warriors were all easily absorbed by Zhang Yi, causing him no harm whatsoever, nor did they force him to retreat even a step. This terrifying scene left the Zhurong warriors below dumbfounded and terrified. What kind of monster is this? Such terrifying defensive power. Is this the enemy that even the overlord of the infernal hell, Ran Yutian, could not withstand? Song Huoyo's eyelids twitched. He could sense that outside Zhang Yi's body was not a simple protective shield, but an abyss that completely absorbed all attacks. There are such terrifying space-type ability users among the land-dwelling humans. Our intelligence was flawed. Song Huoyo took a deep breath, his right hand tightly clutching his severely injured chest. The fire demon, burning with its life force, inflicted considerable damage on him with its desperate attack. Although he had a healer around to treat him, he simply didn't have enough time to fully recover from a powerful enemy like Zhang Yi. He has to make a move. Azure Flame, Dance of Annihilation. His fiery wings suddenly unfolded, and rings of cold flames stretched out like curtains from between the feathers, rapidly drawing outwards. At the same time, the sea of magma beneath the entire fiery prison city surged up, like an ocean drawn by the moon tide. The scalding energy rushed into the sky above the city with unrestrained force, flowing into his arms, chest, and finally his heart. Temperatures are rising. 10,000 degrees Celsius, 12,000, 15,000. The air was heated to a white color like glass, and the distant rock platforms collapsed one by one, turning into flowing red. He stood in front of everyone and suddenly swung his arm. The dance steps formed by cold-colored flames intertwined in midair, and with each step, a mountain was ignited. A massive, chaotic curtain of fire, layered upon layered, descended like a collapsing sky, completely enveloping the area where Zhang Yi was located. The roar of the sea of lava was like a surging tide. The raging fire fell like rain. The world is like being stuffed into a giant furnace. But outside Zhang Yi's body, that transparent sea of stars was still spinning. Each burst of firelight that touched the edge of the door was like falling into another layer of air, shining for a moment before disappearing without a trace. Sunlua Wanxiang treated Songhua Lu's thermal energy attack like trash, collecting it without leaving a trace. As a professional warehouse manager, he excels at this. That's impossible. Song Huoyo roared, his fiery veins flaring up on his forehead. How do you intend to counteract the energy of the rock sea? His answer was a beam of cold blue light. Zhang Yi had already drawn the sword. The moment the sword of judgment was drawn, there was no soaring flame, only a steady line of dawn along the spine of the sword. In the pupil of his left eye, an ancient clock appeared, its second hand moving slowly, the second hand of time. The trajectory of the next 5 seconds appeared to him like a thin line spreading out. Zhang Yi saw everything clearly. The angle at which Song Huoyo's fire wings would retract, the manner of his attack, the intensity of his fire curtain, and even the slight sluggishness in his heart's fire vein due to injury. In his eyes, there was a definite future. Chapter 25 for Azure Fireflow 2. The molten sea rolled up to the sky like a red carpet that had been overturned, the fire towers bent one by one in the distance, and the heat waves in the city center rose higher and higher like the sound of the tide. Zhang Yi stepped out of the city, venturing alone into the sea and sky. He raised his hand, flicked his fingertips, and the entire battlefront seemed to be paused gently. This was a challenge. His gaze was fixed intently on Song Huoyo. Both of them are already at the night level. If they unleash their full power on the battlefield, others around them will inevitably be affected. Zhang Yi didn't care about the life or death of the Zhurong clan, but he felt sorry for his team and those mechanical life forms that were expensive to repair. Song Huoyo's eyes were cold. He clutched his chest, knowing he had no choice but to fight despite his injuries, because he knew that Zhang Yi would never give him a chance. But looking around, Behind him were hundreds of millions of people of his Zhurong clan. He had no way out. Come on, you despicable land people. Today I will show you just what kind of being the fiery hell overlord of the Zhurong clan truly is. Song Hua-Lu roared and suddenly rose from the top of the fire tower, shooting upwards like a giant meteor, chasing after Zhang Yi. With a flap of its fiery wings, countless fine threads of cold fire were drawn from between the feathers, instantly weaving half the sky. The dent in his chest was still throbbing. The hidden wound left by the fire demon felt like a barb with every breath. The two retreated swiftly, arriving at a distant lava ocean region. The auras of the two powerful figures caused the lava ocean to roar, and the enormous lava creatures below were terrified and fled in panic, not daring to approach. You've chosen a good spot. Let it be your final resting place, Zhang Yi said calmly. Song Huilio's pupils constricted. He angrily rebuked, utterly arrogant. Even if you have some strength, don't forget that this is the territory of my Zhurong clan. The next instant, his fiery wings suddenly lashed out, and the entire molten sea seemed to be gripped by an invisible giant hand. 10,000 layers of fire waves surged up from the sea's back, all folding into a fire blade that stretched for 100 miles. The blade's spine was as thick as a city wall, and its edge was as thin as a line of cold white, before crashing down. In an instant, the world was reduced to a single, intense white heat. Zhang Yi remained unmoved, while the myriad phenomena of the universe slowly opened and closed. The 3,000 gates swirled around him like a transparent flower of starlight. The fire blade fell near the flower's heart, its edge first being drained, the remaining force entering the gate like a mud ox sinking into the sea, leaving not a trace. Physical attacks are useless against absolute defense. After reaching the night level, Zhang Yi became increasingly closer to the origin of etheric energy. Ultimately, the Azure Firestyle's abilities are nothing more than fire and magma. So-called skills are simply different ways of using one's own alien energy. Ultimately, however, any physical attack makes no difference to the myriad phenomena of the universe. Zhang Yi's defense has reached a point of returning to simplicity. He stood quietly in midair, watching Song Huilio attack him relentlessly, his eyes showing no emotion whatsoever. Will there be any mistakes? Of course not, because this second hand of time can see everything in the future, so the possibility of it going wrong is zero. Heaven and earth ashes. Billions of rocks were buried and destroyed by the sea. 9 dragons combined attack. The Azure Fire Stream launched rapid attacks around Zhang Yi, unleashing one skill after another with tremendous force, flames engulfing the heavens and earth as if threatening to destroy the world. A night-level attack can easily destroy a human city. However, they couldn't break through Zhang Yi's transparent dimensional gate in midair. Why is it not working? Is the difference in strength between him and me really that great? The more Song Huilio fought, the more terrified he became. But clearly, the energy fluctuations emanating from Zhang Yi looked no different from his. Both of them have an ability index of 52,000 points. However, in terms of abilities, Zhang Yi is the one who can counter all physical attack-type enemies, and he has a deeper understanding of superpowers. Song Huilio's gaze faltered for a moment, then he raised his hand again. Since we can't break through your defenses with our abilities, how about we try some other methods? Countless furnace cores rose from the sea, arranged in 36 enormous fire rings according to an ancient fire array, overlapping from the outside in. He uses himself as a guide, linking everything together. If they close, everything at the center will be twisted into dust. Fire locks 1,000 pivots. Outside of Flame Prison City, in the Sea of Magma, there exist tactical traps powered by magma, specifically designed to defend against invasions by other races. The Azure Fire Stream lured Zhang Yi here to take advantage of the terrain in battle. In the next instant, the ring lock had closed to within a kilometer of Zhang Yi. With a flick of Zhang Yi's fingertip, 12 thin, invisible strings were drawn out of the air by the dimensional string decipher, and all the surrounding cores shattered upon contact. The fire is still moving, but the roads are completely blocked. The 1,000 pivots spun in an instant, like a giant machine whose gears were all mismatched, unable to engage or close. Song Hulyo's brows furrowed, and he suddenly plunged into the sea. He decided to directly activate the enormous mechanism beneath the magma ocean, the lava vein mechanized city. At the same time, the rock rings that had been dormant for 100,000 years beneath the magma sea rose up, the vents opened, the backflow chambers resonated, and the terrifying heat energy was amplified tenfold between the rings. One by one, deep wells connecting to the deepest ley lines silently opened their mouths beneath Zhang Yi's feet. Anything that is locked will be dragged to the Earth's core and crushed. Those wells that draw in the magma layer of the Earth's veins are like super cannons pointing to the sky, bursting forth with explosive energy. Its sheer scale was so impressive that even Zhang Yi couldn't help but take notice. Using the terrain to launch an attack against me, that's certainly a clever idea. No matter how powerful Zhang Yi's myriad manifestations are, it's impossible for him to completely absorb the almost endless underground magma layer. Moreover, Song Huilu is still watching closely from the sidelines. I've already experienced your attack. It's nothing special. Next round, it's my turn to attack. With his sword in hand, he finally decided to launch an attack. Suddenly, a vast expanse of darkness unfolded behind Zhang Yi, revealing a gigantic vortex, a darkness capable of swallowing everything. The black, viscous undercurrent fell silently, like a soft yet irresistible tide. Grand burial in the underworld. Zhang Yi spoke softly. Silently, thick antimatter overflowed from the dark vortex, engulfing everything in sight. The netherworld, the opposite of this universe, is a realm where dark matter can devour everything created by the creator Kagago within this universe. In other words, there is no superpower in this world that cannot be devoured by antimatter. In other words, Zhang Yi's ability can suppress all supernatural powers. The netherworld surged, and the dark, viscous tide spread out, instantly submerging the volcanic eruptions of the wellheads within the Earth's veins that spewed forth massive amounts of heat energy. It gently erased one stroke from the character. In the name of each well. The well is still there, but the force is dulled, and the closing rhythm is delayed by half a beat. Chapter 25:05 Azure Fireflow 3. The moment the gate to the netherworld opened, Song Hulyo's pupils constricted sharply. He felt a sense of crisis, as if he were facing a natural enemy, and his blood turned cold. What exactly is that power? The boundless, endless ocean of magma spread out, swallowing even light and smoothing out volcanoes. It spread across the sea of lava like ink, silently extinguishing the warmth in that direction. This is the power that will destroy you, Zhang Yi said coldly. He stretched out his left hand toward Kangoryu, and the dimensional string release began its relentless attack once again. Hurry, hurry, hurry. Cracks were drawn out from the space, like a chaotic and disordered net, directly trapping Song Huilu within them, and then began to cut mercilessly. Song Hulyo's chest clenched as a massive rift tore through his thick armor, causing hot, crimson blood to gush from his chest. What? He raised his spear and swung it wildly at the attacks that came from nowhere. Zhang Yi's attack did not stop for a moment, and Song Hulyo was futilely resisting and fleeing. However, the surrounding space was already filled with traps, so he could only unleash his strongest power. His alien energy was as red as blood, and the extreme heat was his protective layer. However, this pure energy shield gradually dims when faced with the extraction of dimensions. Hiss, hiss, hiss. The air was cut, space was cut, and his defensive layers were torn open, quickly almost penetrating his defenses and striking his body. Kangoria's body was already severely injured, and he had no time to repair it, while also facing constant attacks. He held his breath and forcefully suppressed his injury. He wasn't going to just take a beating, so he opened his right palm towards the ocean of lava below and clenched it tightly. The spirit of Zhurong resides within me. The rocky sea is like me, and I am like the rocky sea. Upon hearing this chant, Zhang Yi frowned slightly. AI system, isn't there something wrong with your translation? The intelligent system immediately explained, actually, I'm only a little bit humorous. I'm still quite romantic. The vast ocean of magma began to boil, accompanied by a deafening roar, and one after another, huge pillars of fire rose from the seabed. These were erupting volcanoes. They point to the sky, standing upright like spears. 10,000 spears were fired simultaneously, their tips crimson red, aimed directly at Zhang Yi in midair. With a wave of his hand, Zhang Yi caused the gates of the myriad phenomena to expand, forming a crystal-clear, invisible sphere, or like a flower bud blooming. Immediately, the myriad petals of the universe slowly tilted to one angle. 10,000 spears pierced the world as thin as nothingness, and the roaring volcano tried to break through Zhang Yi's absolute defense with the power of nature. Song Huolio roared in a deep voice, "How can you, alone, withstand the might of heaven?" Zhang Yi looked at him, her voice cold. "You think you're using the power of nature to deal with me, but you're just moving goods into my warehouse." Upon hearing these words, Song Huolio's eyes suddenly flashed with anger and unease. What exactly did Zhang Yi mean by that? He soon found out. Because when he changed his rhythm, his fire wings suddenly retracted, and the cold fire line condensed into an extremely thin and sharp blade, which swept fiercely toward Zhang Yi. A sudden change occurred. In an instant, a very soft, delicate cracking sound rang out from the edge of the myriad petals. It cracked. Song Huolio was suddenly overjoyed. I can break through his defenses. Zhang Yi glanced down at it. Beautiful. You can be proud of yourself for being able to break even 1% of my defense. However, that's about all I wanted. Zhang Yi soared into the sky, no longer absorbing excess volcanic energy. He stood very high, as if he wanted to fly up to the sky and stand shoulder to shoulder with the sun. What is this guy planning to do? Song Huolio's face was solemn. He suppressed the wound on his chest from the fire demon's self-destruction. I don't care what you are, but you definitely come from the land. So you shouldn't be fighting so calmly in the Earth's core. Really? That's not necessarily true. Before he finished speaking, he raised his wrist. The energy collection was complete. He had been waiting for this moment. When he raised his right hand, all the power that Azure Fireflow had continuously poured into his alternate dimension during this battle condensed into a black sun that suddenly appeared in the sky. It was scorching hot, hotter than magma. The powerful heat radiation even made Song Huolio, a fire-type night-level superhuman, feel his throat dry and his skin sting, as if it were about to crack open at any moment. This power is mine. Song Huolio shouted in astonishment. I will return the power of your flames to you completely and without reservation. Zhang Yi was covered in black armor, but when he unleashed this move, he could still feel the heat making him sweat profusely. He held the ever-expanding sun in one hand and slammed it down hard. The sin of blasphemy. The techniques that used to require great effort and even risk injury to use are now fully mature. Zhang Yi can unleash it as a finishing move at any time. This move, which concentrates all the attacks of the Azure Flame style, can unleash an attack power that is close to the level of a Black Knight with 60,000 points. This attack turned Song Huolio's face deathly pale. No! He even saw death approaching, but he was absolutely unwilling to die in battle like that. Ancestors of the Zhurong clan, protect me! He roared and, in the name of the current city lord of Yinyu City, mobilized all military equipment.
Boom, boom, boom.
Beneath the vast ocean of lava, the lava flow was violently pushed aside, revealing an enormous ancient city. That was one of the foundations of the Zhurong clan, a drifting fortress that could carry its people at any time, diving into the magma layer and reaching the depths of the Earth's core. It can even withstand the extreme temperatures at the Earth's core. In the previous era, their race relied on it to preserve a portion of their fire. So today, Although they have lost their technological civilization, they are still able to thrive and multiply. The drifting fortress stood between him and the black sunset. Song Julio knew very well that he was seriously injured and could not withstand this attack. The enormous black sun, like the rule of Judgment Day, fell down, leaving nowhere to hide. When it collided with the massive floating fortress, the resulting monstrous waves directly submerged several distant cities floating on the landmass. The black light eclipsed the world, but ultimately failed to shatter the colossal fortress. However, the fortress could not completely absorb Zhang Yi's attack. The energy that was released was enough to send Song Julio flying, making the blood flow from his already gaping chest even more horribly. Here ends today's chapter. I hope you liked it. Kindly do also subscribe to my gaming channel. I have to Fina a way to survive. Thanks.